Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. We're so pleased that you've joined us today for the Chamber September Luncheon. As the video you just saw points out, healthcare is a complex issue that has unique and systemic challenges for the business community. Workforce is an intrinsic problem for businesses across our region, and to have sustainable progress on the problem, we have to understand the role that healthcare plays in that challenge. Our goal today is to begin to understand this relationship and start a conversation on fixing these problems. So before we begin, I would like to thank Cheyenne Regional Medical Center for being today's presenting sponsor. We are so appreciative of your support. Let's give them a hand. I just want to let everybody know while we're speaking today, please feel free to take our poll that's going to be showing on the screen. We'll do periodic live updates throughout the luncheon. Now, please join me in welcoming Tim Thornell with Cheyenne Regional Medical Center to the stage.
Thanks, Paula. So yeah, a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, we got asked, hey, you know you like to sponsor some events at the Chamber. We're big Chamber supporters, and makes sense for you to sponsor the event we're going to have about healthcare. Yes, happy to do it. And then a couple months later, hey, do you want to do the program yourself? I'm like, okay, we can do that too. So yeah, I'll be up here a little bit later talking about healthcare in that role. So I don't need to bore you with a lot of stuff here at this very moment. I just want to say thanks to all of you showing up today and being part of the Chamber, supporting the Chamber. And I do want to let you know, hey, we have great healthcare in our state. Right, I had the pleasure of being in this exact room for 2 days straight recently, yesterday and the day before, hosting our Wyoming Hospital Association, and our association led by Eric Bully, stationed here in Cheyenne, but represents all the hospitals in Wyoming. And we had our best event ever, including the governor was here speaking, Senator Barrasso was here, and we had the president and CEO of the American Hospital Association, Rick Pollock, here as well. So we had a great event for all of our hospitals here in Wyoming. And then later this month, the Wyoming Medical Society is going to host their annual event just over the hill in Laramie, and they did a fantastic job last year, and they'll do an equally great job this year. And they have a couple hundred physicians from around our state come together to go over how they can make healthcare better in our communities and in our state as well. So we're thrilled to have that event coming up here very shortly. We just have great partners that we get to work with. And I just want to give a shout out to the University of Wyoming Family Practice Medicine residency program. We have one here in Cheyenne, and there's one over in Casper. They're supported by the University of Wyoming and the state of Wyoming, and they train our physicians. They train family practice physicians to practice great medicine and encourage them to stay right here in Cheyenne and in Wyoming, and they do a great job with that, and we're proud to be partners of theirs. And then the last one I want to recognize is the WWAMI program. If you're not familiar with that acronym, well, one, we're in healthcare and we love acronyms, so we give everything an acronym. But WWAMI is Washington for Washington State, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, Idaho. So it's a consortium of states that come together, and of all those states, only Washington State has a medical school. The rest of us don't. And so the University of Washington earmarks about 20 slots per state per year to have students from those states go and attend medical school, and our state sponsors them financially. And if they finish their medical school, go off to residency training anywhere in the country, become great physicians, we encourage them to come back to Wyoming because we help pay that medical school tuition, which can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. The average medical student graduating medical school now has a debt of about $200,000. So anything we can do to help alleviate that is beneficial to bringing people back to our state and our community. So we have great partners in healthcare in Wyoming, and I'm just proud to work with each and every one of them. And then you'll hear more from me a little bit later. So thank you, Paula. Thank you, everyone, and I'm glad you're joining us today.
Thank you so much, Tim and Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. We'd also like to extend a special thank you to our sponsors that are making this luncheon possible as well. Those silver sponsors are Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Wyoming, Cornerstone Caregiving, Little America Hotel and Resort, Then our bronze sponsors are Aligned Providers Wyoming, Appaloosa Broadcasting, Cheyenne Radiology Group and MRI, North Star Pharmacy and Infusion, and Y-High Federal Credit Union. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Barbara Brennan with Harmony Hearth and Home and the Red Carpet Committee to come forward to introduce our new members.
Good afternoon. The Red Carpet Committee is the welcoming committee for the Chamber of Commerce. It is our job to roll out the red carpet to all new members and make them feel welcome and be able to make connections with the Chamber as a whole. So today, I get the privilege of introducing the new members that we have for this month. First up is Cornerstone Caregiving with Kayla Hutchings. Cornerstone Caregiving provides non-medical in-home care to multiple counties here in Wyoming. The director, Kayla, has been doing home care for over 8 years now and is passionate about providing quality and consistent care. Cornerstone offers a wide variety of services such as cooking, cleaning, companionship, and transportation, all the way to personal care items. Cornerstone is a locally run and operated business committed to providing a high level of care and compassion. Welcome to the Chamber. The Rotary Club, and we have some of their officers here today, Scott Fox, Lori Garrison, and Beth Vandewey. The Rotary Club of Cheyenne was founded in 1918 and currently has 171 active members. They provide service to others, promote integrity, and advance world understanding, goodwill, and peace through fellowship of business, professional, and community leaders. Rotarians live by the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And I understand we have a lot of Rotarians here today. Would you just stand if you are a member of the Rotary Club? Well, we welcome the club to the chamber. Silver Sage Ceramics, owners Tamara and Dane Rogers. Silver Sage Ceramics has been open for 3 years and has expanded since to include a gallery and a 24/7 clay studio. They sell clay, glazes, tools, equipment, and locally made pottery. Also, they offer classes and workshops specializing in hand building and wheel throwing clay. And I can vouch for the fact that Tamara's a great teacher and will fix your mistakes. Welcome to the chamber. Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative, Kelly Morgan and Mary Throne. The Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative is a nonprofit organization with a mission to increase breast cancer awareness and prevention across Wyoming. The GCCC raises funds that are then granted back into Wyoming through the community grant. In addition, and with the partnership of the Cancer Program, Wyoming Breast Cancer Initiative provides free mammograms, breast diagnostic imaging, and biopsies, regardless of age, gender, income, and insurance status. Welcome to the Chamber. Red Horizon Tanning Salon, Christy Redden and Rosa Marshall. Christy Redden is the owner and CEO of Red Horizon Tanning Salon here in Cheyenne. They are a locally owned and family-run tanning salon. They are striving to bring some of the best customer service experience and the bronzing tanning in the city. They have amazing tanning beds and spray tanning to follow. Welcome to the Chamber. Boots on the Ground Productions, Stacy Emmerine. Boots on the Ground Productions is a full-service meeting and event management company. From board meetings and retreats to large multi-day conferences, trade shows, galas, and everything in between. Their 40 years of experience will give you the peace of mind that your event will go off without a hitch. From the initial planning phase until the final bill is paid, they are your partners. Owner Stacy is a certified meeting professional, as well as a real estate agent who is ready to help you with your next meeting, event, home sale, or purchase. Welcome to the Chamber.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see everybody on this first day of September. We're glad that you've taken a little time out to spend some time with those in the business community and talk about how we make Cheyenne a better place to live, work, and do business. You know, as the chamber exec, I've always been amazed at the kinds of calls I get at the chamber. And I had a particularly passionate call this week. And he was an older gentleman. I could tell by the way he was talking. He was very concerned about the debt of this nation. So he was going on and on and on about the debt of this nation. I was trying to be respectful. And I knew that I remembered that one of my favorite guys that ever lived was Will Rogers, right? And for Will Rogers from my home state. So I started Googling what Will Rogers would say about that. And so just to show that you can be optimistic about everything that happens in the world, here was Will Rogers' quote. "Thank goodness we don't get all the government we pay for." I think that's true about a number of things. So, you know, Tim, I think you're kind of in that boat today where, you know, you're sponsored and we said, hey, by the way, while you're at it, we deeply appreciate you being a part of this. We're very fortunate today to have some folks join us, and I want to point them out. But first of all, I want to point out someone who I think is a great American and is a great addition to this community, him and his whole family. We are so pleased to have Colonel Galbert, who is the commander at Warren Air Force Base. And just wave at let them see your face. But I can't tell you how fortunate we are to have great leaders in our military that work for our men and women in uniform. And oh yeah, they got all those people to take care of, but they got a nation to defend too. And there's very few that turn out to be great at doing that. And Colonel Galbert's one of those people. Thank you for participating with us and joining us in this community. And please know that we are here to help you. And our people are committed to the men and women that serve, to your family who's moved here. He's got a junior and senior in high school. And I was just thinking about when I was a senior in high school, how I felt about getting uprooted and moved, no matter how worthwhile my parents' calling was. And I thought, that'd be pretty tough. So as school starts, keep our minds open to all these military kids that are starting a new life and in a new town, and how we can support them. So thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah, go ahead. We're also fortunate to, and I told him it's condolences kind of, but our acting superintendent of schools, Steve Newton. So Steve, glad to have you here. You will find that the business community is very worried about workforce, and their future workforce is sitting in your buildings in school right now. So do a good job with them. I know you'll endeavor to do that. Appreciate. Also glad to see Director Cooley here today. I just keeping an eye on Tim because you're kind of his boss, right? So since he's my boss on my board, it's always good to see that somebody else watching too. So thank you for being here today. We appreciate it, Robin. A few activities. September is a very busy month for us, and we're getting ready for an even busier fall. Let me put a couple of business after hours on your calendar. So we have one on the 13th, which is Terrell's. I will get it wrong, but it's like a lot of years they've been in Cheyenne, so they're going to celebrate that. And we'll send you a notice out for that, but please try to attend that. On the 21st, I think we have somebody from Banner Capital here. Yeah, I know we do. I know Claire's here, so wave, Claire. Hi, Claire. We have a business after hours at Banner Capital, and then we have another special event on the 28th at Coldwell Banker. So get those on your calendar and make plans to be there. Now, I know that none of you want to hear this, but at the chamber, we're getting ready for Christmas parade, right? So you think it's a long way away, but it's right around the corner. We need sponsors to make that work every year. So if you've done that or you have a desire to do that, please talk to our staff, or maybe your company has a float every year. Some of those floats take some time, I know. So we've already had people saying, can I sign up? So anyway, it's right around the corner. So please watch out for that. Additionally, October is business month. So that's when we do our business expo. We also do my favorite event of the year, and that is our Circle of Champions. So our Circle of Champions, we pick out somebody in the community that has a lifelong commitment, has had a lifelong career commitment to this community, and ask them about what makes our town special, right? About how they balance work with their giving to the community and serving the community. And that's been a tremendous event. Make sure you get that on your calendars. I believe it's the 17th of October, but you'll get a registration for that. This year, our honoree for Circle of Champions is going to be Rita Meyer. And Rita, if you don't know her story, it's pretty incredible. Came from pretty humble beginnings, moved to this state, and contributed a lot of her life to its betterment. So look forward to having that in October. Now, also in October, we will again do our economics report breakfast. We have the U.S. Chamber involved in that. We have UW involved with that. We may have a couple others before it's over. But I think of any year we've been in business, probably most of us, it could be that this year, and seeing what's coming in the future and how we're going to respond to that, it is one of those critical times. And so I don't think it has to turn out bad on the other end, but that's going to be up to us paying attention and doing our business planning to that result. So we'll make sure you get that on your calendar as well. A few other things that we're doing. So Colonel Galbert, Sentinel's on track. We're moving forward, right? So huge project that is moving more quickly in our community. We'll keep you updated about that. But certainly it's going to have a big impact on all of this part of Wyoming, Nebraska, and Colorado. So I do know this fall we're going to have a couple events where your business can get involved if you haven't been already. So please call us at the chamber and we'll make sure that happens. Also, we have a survey out about development in the city and county. So if you have done a development project, built a building, done a remodel, change of use, these kinds of things, please respond to that survey. It's very important that we stay competitive in our community. And as we're working with city council, county commissioners, what we have to share them comes directly off the input that you give us. So some people are very passionate about this one as well. And we've gotten quite a few responses already, but the more responses we can get, the more of a case we can make for positive change in our community. So please make sure that you do that. We also have a housing study coming out pretty soon. So sometime this fall, we're going to get to look at housing's changed a lot, right, through the pandemic. I think very few of us understand it well. We've all got a lot of opinions, but we don't do a lot of math whenever we're looking. And the purpose of this study is to make sure that we have the math. It's a follow-up to our study that we did before the pandemic. So we look forward to what that tells us about how to move forward with housing in this community. Lastly, I'd just like to thank a couple of folks. We have some big interactions in the summer that become important to us. One is the interaction we have at the governor's mansion. We were lucky to have Secretary of the Air Force Kendall come in for that, as well as the head of the Army Guard. And we can't do that without sponsors. So Northrop Grumman sponsored that, many years of sponsorship with that. So if you see Matt Dillo or Steve Kravitsky or some of those guys running around the community, please give them a thanks for that. On our advocacy side, we fund it partially every year by a trap shoot, right? So I know a lot of you participate with that. We have really good turnout every year. Some of you guys can't shoot very well, so I know we haven't got the toilet bowl. We give a small toilet bowl for the worst shooter at the trap shoot. So I won't announce the winner of that prestigious award, but we will make sure that they get it. But we'd like to thank RE/MAX Capital Properties for helping us with that. It is very important for the work we do, not just with the military, but just with advocacy for the business community in general. So please give those guys a round of applause and thank them for their support. Hope everyone has a wonderful holiday weekend, and I'd ask Paul Poitras, your chairman, to come forward and introduce. Oh, you want me to give stuff away? Oh, boo ball. You want me to do boo ball too? I think Megan's going to do boo ball, right? So if Megan Harrington would come forward, I think we have a short word about boo ball.
Calling all ghosts, ghouls, witches, warlocks, vampires, werewolves, zombies, and monsters. The date and location are set. My name is Megan Harrington, and I am this year's The Leadership of Cheyenne 2022-2023 Boo Ball Chair. This year's event is going to be a smash of an evening as a monster mash. Presented by Ken Garf. Returning to its roots, it will be at the Red Lion Hotel. Saturday, October 21st, doors open at 6 p.m. Come as you are in whatever costume you have. There will be a costume contest, gun raffle, silent and live auctions, and more. Single tickets are available through the Chamber website, and sponsorship opportunities are still available. If you are interested, please reach out to any of the class members of 2022-2023 leadership, the Chamber staff, or myself. All proceeds from our Boo Ball this year is going to our Legacy Landscape Project. The project will help the city turn places like Robert Burns Park into water-wise landscaping, keeping water usage low and the park beautiful all year round. Come one, come all adults, if you dare.
Thank you, Megan. See, my staff has learned they stand up here close because they know I'll miss something, so they can wave at me. All right, free lunch drawing. So Kevin Moffett is the winner of the free lunch today. So please see staff and we'll get you your free lunch. So the half pot today, 2224892. Did you win that too? That seems rigged, right? So Kevin Moffett wins the money as well. So all right, Elizabeth, am I safe now? Can we start the program? Very good. I'm getting the heads up, shaking head, yes. So now, please welcome your chairman, Paula Poitras, to the stage to recognize our speakers for today's presentation.
Kevin, I think you need to get a lottery ticket or something. I mean, that's just amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Dale. Pardon me, and Megan. Our panel for today's luncheon features some of the most knowledgeable people working in the healthcare industry in our state. They understand that healthcare is a business problem that we've got to figure out for our communities to be prosperous. Our moderator for today's panel is none other than our esteemed hospital president and CEO and board member, Tim Thornell. Please help me welcome Tim, Sheila Bush, Executive Director of the Wyoming Medical Society, Eric Boley, President of the Wyoming Hospital Association, and Dr. Mark Hauscher with Cheyenne Radiology Group to the stage.
Well, hopefully the rest of you aren't struggling with your mic like I am. Got it turned on, ready to go. Great. Well, thanks for joining us this afternoon. So we thought, what better? You know, it's Friday afternoon. At least for the moment, it's not raining. We have Labor Day coming up in just a couple of days, long weekend. So we just might have a little light conversation about a not so heavy topic called healthcare cost and finance, right? We have a great panel, right? I'm just thrilled to have everyone on stage here with me. Dr. Mark Hauscher, board certified radiologist, been here in this community for well over 11 years, but he's a Wyoming native, right? So thrilled to have him here with us. And then Sheila Bush, Executive Director for the Medical Society, been in her role for over 17 years, supporting physicians in Wyoming. So thrilled to have you here with us. And then Eric Boley, President and CEO of the Wyoming Hospital Association, and have the privilege of being on their board as well. And before doing his role there, he was a hospital CEO in Kemmerer, Wyoming for many years, and CFO before that. So he's lived and breathed healthcare for many years. So we have a wealth of knowledge and experience up here. And the one other common thread that they have is they are all chamber members. So each one of their organizations joined the chamber either for a little while ago or some very recently. So they're all glad that, because they recognize, look, the chamber does a lot of work for them as well. Healthcare, it is a business. And so we have that aspect to it, but it's a caring business. It's a business where we take care of people and we take that responsibility very seriously. So today what we want to do is have a little fireside chat, a little roundtable conversation. Now, the four of us know each other actually fairly well. And so we have conversations together, maybe not the four of us all at the same time, but certainly amongst one another, with some degree of frequency. So really today, we're going to kind of have a chat. We're going to have a conversation. I'll ask them a few questions, and you guys can kind of eavesdrop on us, right? So you get to listen to what we talk about, because this is our daily life, talking about some of these things. So listen in, hear what we have to say. Hopefully it'll prompt a couple of questions from the audience. We'll have some time at the end for maybe a couple of audience questions as well. But to kick it off, I just want to spend a few minutes kind of giving you a macro perspective of what we're going to talk about today. So again, healthcare, big topic. Finance, big topic. Cost in healthcare, big topic. And we can't possibly cover everything in this short period of time. And in fact, we just spent the last 2 full days in this exact same room with the Wyoming Hospital Association going over it, and we didn't cover all of it during that time. So I want to kind of take you from the macro national level and then take you to the local level, because at the end of the day, healthcare is local. At the end of the day, we want to be able to make an impact in this room. So we want to be able to talk about some things that you can have an impact on, that we can have an impact on. We can complain all day long about what's happening in DC, and sometimes it's fun to do so. But the reality is we want to spend a little time talking a little bit more about what's happening here locally. So just a little perspective on the national landscape for healthcare. And probably none of this is anything brand new to you. But we face a lot of challenges on the provider side in particular, on the national side. Every year, this year no exception, looking at physician payment sequestration, where the federal government has to actively act in order to not cut payments to physicians. That's tough. Every year we got to fight that battle. It doesn't matter that we saw double-digit inflation these last couple of years. There's books on the laws on the books that say we're going to cut physician reimbursement every single year. So we got to act on that. We have legislation out there knocking on the door to disrupt disproportionate share hospital funding. And don't expect to know what that fully means. But again, hospitals that are maybe sole hospitals in their community, hospitals that disproportionately take care of a lot of patients that are underfunded or have no funding, they need some additional support, and there's some federal funding for it. But that's at risk this year. We're looking at cutting billions of dollars there. And that will have very local impact for us and hospitals all across the nation. Right? Nationwide, we see hospital closures. Hospitals are a tough business to be in, right? We've had many hospitals across this country, most of them rural hospitals, close in the last 12 months. And on the national landscape, you also have other entities in healthcare doing pretty well, right? The pharmaceutical industry, high double digit, 30, 40+% margins. They're not really financially suffering at this point in time. Device companies, right? You think about, hey, I'm going to get a knee replacement. Do you think where that actual knee comes from, right? We have device companies, and they're doing quite well too, right? They make easily those high 30, 40+% margins as well, right? So there are some actors in the healthcare arena that are financially doing very well. But hospitals and healthcare systems aren't really among those, right? Just this week alone, headlines, Providence Health System, they're based out of Renton, Washington in Washington State, but they have a presence all throughout the Northwest into Idaho, on down all the way through Texas. They posted a $202 million loss. Hard to sustain that. Right, and then you bring it down to the state level. Let's look a little more granular, look at the state level here in Wyoming. While we haven't had any hospital closures, we have had program closures. In our state in Wyoming, 2 hospitals this year shut down their OB services, right? That's tough. We all know the streets, the distance between hospital to hospital, city to city in Wyoming, it's not a short drive. And so now you've just magnified that drive to have to go deliver a baby. We have 2 to 3 hospitals here in Wyoming that are on what I'll call financial life support, right? They're struggling. Now, fortunately, Cheyenne Regional is not one in that situation. We've definitely faced our fair share of financial challenges these last couple of years, as every hospital, but we have a couple in our state who barely have enough days cash on hand to make next month's payroll. That's a tough place to be. And you don't want to, it's hard to be in that community with a hospital that you're dependent upon, struggling in that fashion. So we have challenges here locally. And then you look right here in Cheyenne, right here in Laramie County, what we're facing in healthcare, a lot of you are facing as well. We have a very tight labor market, right? We have a need and demand for a lot of nurses, a lot of CNAs, certified nursing assistants, for physicians. And there's not as many as we'd like to hire. And recruiting physicians here can be a challenge, right? We all love Wyoming. We all love Cheyenne, right? But it's still hard to convince sometimes physicians to come here. And we need physicians in particular specialties, right? I'm recruiting a new neurosurgeon. He didn't get trained in Wyoming, right? We don't have that training here. They got to come from somewhere else, right? And so we have to find someone who's going to love and adore our community just as much as we do. And we do it, but it's not easy, right? So we face a lot of local challenges. So I want to turn to our panel and ask you a couple of questions here. So we kind of, again, talk about the national landscape, a little about the state, and then kind of make it local a little bit. But healthcare finance, it's so complicated. And healthcare, let's face it, we all know it, it's expensive, right? But maybe share with us from your vantage point, what are some of the drivers of healthcare costs that you see? And maybe the rest of the public doesn't see it, right? Because we live it day in and day out, they don't. So maybe share some costs that may or may not be apparent to everyone else that you kind of got to struggle with on a daily basis. So Eric, let's start with you.
Well, thanks, Tim. First of all, I'm just happy I'm not wearing the ribs on my shirt. I was hoping for a bib. You've mentioned some of the things we already struggle with, but when you take a look at a hospital's finance, more than 50%, closer to 60%, is just in salaries alone. And as we take a look at the staffing shortages that we're seeing in every industry, it's not just healthcare. We see those costs continue to rise. During the pandemic, we actually had traveling nurses that were coming from all over the country. And we've used traveling nurses for many, many years, but we used to pay between $50 and $70 an hour for those traveling nurses. During the pandemic, we were paying $280 an hour. And it started to come back down, but it still hasn't normalized. And so that's a big crunch. One of our hospitals that you talked about that really is struggling, they spent all of their reserves on that traveling staff, even with the help that we received from the governor to help offset that. So that's obviously an expense that we all incur. But in healthcare, we've got some pretty hefty salaries too when you take a look at things. I think some of the other things, we're all facing inflation. Recruitment of qualified providers is a big thing. And not only are we recruiting the provider, we're recruiting the spouse and the family, make sure that it's a good fit. Same with you guys. When we look at benefits for our employees, there's a lot of expense there. And then we talked about it. Pharma is a big one. It drives the cost of healthcare, implants. I think the other thing that we need to address is insurance costs for all of us are high. I don't blame the insurance companies, though, honestly. I mean, there are several out there that you'll see advertised during the Super Bowl and during the World Series, and I don't feel too bad for them. But I would say the Affordable Care Act has really fractured the insurance market, and we're all reaping the benefits or non-benefits of the Affordable Care Act because it hasn't been fully implemented. It was supposed to really help with that. So we've seen an increase in our uninsured and our underinsured in our hospitals to the tune of $130, $140 million a year just at our costs. So those are some big things. I think the other thing, regulatory burden is huge for all of us. I think we've got a lot of bankers here, and you feel the pain, but other than banking, I think healthcare is probably the most regulated industry in the country. I also represent all the nursing homes in the state, and unfortunately, we just heard from the Biden administration that they're going to impose staffing mandates and staffing ratios in long-term care. That is going to cripple and crush our long-term care facilities in the state. There is no staff, and so they expect us to increase our staffing rates. I don't know where they're going to come from, and artificial intelligence is definitely not the answer to that. And so that puts pressure on our hospitals. They're going to end up keeping those patients that should be in nursing homes or other settings of care. They're going to be taking up our beds. Very expensive, very hard to treat, and it's not right for them. But so that's just a few things. A lot of really easy stuff.
Yeah, what a very issue, right? What a very real issue. So at hospitals, hey, we need to get patients to the right setting of care, and if they're in our beds, a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, which is not uncommon, longer, that's a bed that we can't get someone else in. That impedes our ability to provide care. Not only that, our reimbursement for that shrinks, in some instances nothing, but just dwindles to next to nothing. for that. So it does really pose a challenge.
And in that same vein, mental health issues in our state, it's definitely underfunded, but you end up with, I remember a time during a legislative session where half of your emergency room beds were filled with folks that needed a different care, different setting of care. We couldn't get them anywhere because the state hospital was full, Wyoming Behavioral Institute. So we've got these poor people sitting in the wrong settings of care, and they're not receiving the care that they need so they can get back out and be really active and productive members of society. So that's another big challenge, is the mental health issues in our state.
So Dr. Hauser, so you're in private practice. You're in private practice. You have Cheyenne Radiology Group here, right? And so you have your own clinic, your own group. In addition, you support the hospital and do all the radiology reads for us. And so you guys are really, really busy, and you have your foot in both sides. You're intimately involved in what happens in the hospital, as well as intimately involved in running your very own practice. So you've got to have some unique financial challenges. What are maybe one or two challenges that you experience that, again, maybe we don't in other sectors of healthcare and or people may not fully appreciate?
Well, thank you for asking me that.
Is the light on?
It says it is. Well, I am, first of all, I want to say that I'm very happy about the healthcare in Cheyenne. I think it's a very excellent place to have healthcare, and
We'll get you a mic.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be able to provide healthcare in Cheyenne. I think that our medical community is quite excellent, and we have a very excellent hospital. We have private physicians that support the hospital. The hospital has employed physicians that take care of patients in town, and it's a very good place to have healthcare. The reality is healthcare is expensive, but it's very expensive for us to provide it. We have to hire the highest quality people. We have to provide technologists and ancillary support personnel that are very expensive. And when we're in an environment where there are other jobs available, then we have to engender them to have employment here, and that takes a lot of resources. Additionally, we have burdens of regulation from the federal government. We have to proscribe to all of the things that they tell us to, and that's expensive. It takes administrative time, it takes physician time, and so on. So the reality is there's a lot of expense going into providing the healthcare, and that expense is translated into people's pockets. They have to pay for it, and insurance companies provide insurance, but at the end of the day, it is the patients who end up paying for it.
Yeah. So maybe mention just a little bit. I think radiology is such a great service that we need to have. We're so dependent upon imaging, and your service line, your specialty in radiology, it certainly is emblematic of what we see in healthcare, and that is you're subspecializing. So when we say, hey, a radiologist is not a radiologist, is not a radiologist, you have people in your group who subspecialize in reading different types of films, reading mammographies, for example, reading neurofilms. And then not only that, you have the challenge, as we talk about recruitment, your competition isn't another community in Wyoming. It's not even Denver, not even LA. Your competition is Paris, London, because radiologists can live anywhere in the world and practice medicine because it can all happen over the internet.
Yes, that is true. The internet has been disruptive in that regard. So films and images can be translated anywhere on the internet. However, as you mentioned earlier, healthcare is local, and there are many things that have to be done in person. So for instance, at my private office or at your hospital, we do a lot of different procedures that require expertise and training to be able to do those procedures, but they also require that facility. And that facility has very, very fancy equipment, computers, and all the people to support that. So it's a very large enterprise that we have to maintain in person. So as far as the translation of images digitally across the world, that does occur, and it occurs even today here in Cheyenne. But there's a lot of physical on-site development that has to take place to get patients good care.
Right. And at the end of the day, people still want to see their doctor, right? And you still do some, in-office procedures, some biopsies and some other things where you got to be present. Right.
And that's good. That is our ability to interact with our patients and take care of them and their families it's a privilege. And we all feel that it is a privilege.
It's at a cost to be able to bring that here locally and not rely on someone from a different state or truly a different country.
It's true.
To provide that.
And in my personal environment, we're all board certified radiologists. Many of us have subspecialties and fellowships, certificates of added qualification and so on, like you said. And that's really important so that we can get the right images to the right person at the right time. But it's hard to recruit to Cheyenne, as you know, for any specialty. We're always looking at different ways to do it better. I know there are different specialists and so on in this town that we need to recruit for, as you mentioned, neurosurgery, for instance. It's difficult in this environment, but it's important. And there is a minimum basal layer of competency that can be accepted. You can't go below that.
Right. And we do a great job here. So this is a story from just truly, less than a week ago. We have a new orthopedic surgeon just joined us. And he just completed residency fellowship training out of the very prestigious academic medical center. Very prestigious because I went there too, UC Davis. Go Aggies. Just finished his academic fellowship training there. And I was talking to him the other day and he said, oh yeah, your radiology department's great. I ordered a film and I had the results in less than, I don't even know how quick it was. I just know it was less than an hour. All I know is where I came from, maybe 8 hours. I'd be waiting for that film. I was shocked. So great job. Thanks for doing that. Sheila, let's turn to you and kind of round this out for us. We heard from the hospital. We heard from, Dr. Hauser on the private practice side. But a lot of physicians, a lot of different specialties, some challenges they have in common, some not. It might be unique specialty by specialty. So what can you kind of fill in for us on some unique financial pressures and challenges?
Sure. Thanks for having me. And I don't know, is the mic on?
Yeah.
Great. So I think what's interesting when you pose the question for someone like a medical society representative with physicians across the state, it first feels appropriate to frame kind of what kind of money we're talking about. So the United States in 2022 spent more than $4 trillion on healthcare. And I think what's really important to remember for our perspective is that 8.6% of that was reimbursed to doctors for care that they delivered. So the rest of that number went elsewhere within the healthcare system. And so what's interesting about that and what creates a really unique challenge, I think, for doctors is physicians are the face of medicine. They are the interaction when patients think about healthcare and they get that bill in the mail, they think about that doctor that they saw. And what's behind that bill is so much more than the 8.6% that was given to the doctor. And so I think we're always sort of battling a perception of how much really is in that number and what percentage of that is given to a doctor. For us, the cost drivers on a more kind of global space are defensive medicine. Some in the room may remember, I'm looking out at Dr. Miley, we're almost coming up on 20 years when the state of Wyoming had a conversation about tort reform. And it isn't as much of a conversation topic anymore for a variety of reasons. But just last year, Becker's reported that $65 billion was spent in 2022 alone on unnecessary testing and procedures, all in the name of defensive medicine. And so at this point, we're training our physicians to practice differently out of a fear of a litigious climate. And Wyoming is one of the only states in the region who really hasn't addressed the issue. And to be fair, it's unique here. It's harder to address the issue in Wyoming. We're one of the only states that requires a constitutional amendment for us to really tackle that problem, which adds a very interesting, complicating layer. But I think defensive medicine needs to always sort of be in the conversation, even if it's not at the forefront, in terms of a significant cost driver. And that, along with the administrative burden for doctors, it's estimated that they spend, I have it here, 21 minutes per transition is spent on just the administrative component of a claim. So they spend that time with you in an exam room. They spend another 21 minutes for every single patient they see dealing with the paperwork. And the paperwork can be a variety of things, but that has a cost. And one of those costs of the administrative burden is on burnout. And so there's some pretty interesting data around burnout. Just last year, the American healthcare workforce lost 117,000 doctors, left the workforce. And a large percentage of that was attributed to burnout. They can't do it anymore. And that's a real serious problem when we have a shortage of residency openings. We're not producing physicians as quickly as the community needs them. And that leads to not only a burden on the providers who are left practicing, but certainly the expense. And then our biggest concern, or kind of topic of conversation in the last few years, has been primary care and the devaluation of primary care, and the need to sort of take a closer look at how patients navigate healthcare, and reemphasizing that medical home, making sure that they have a trusted initial point of care that can help navigate the rest of it to really important subspecialty medicine. So,
Well, I like, it's one of the things you said about, tort reform, but really, hey, we are practicing some defensive medicine. We are doing some tests and procedures that, to safeguard against that. But the other thing that struck me is, and Dr. Hauser, I'm going to ask you to comment on this in a second, when you document, right? So you spend a lot of time not in front of the patient doing medical work, but it's not direct patient care in front of the patient. You're documenting, you're writing down in your notes what you did. So that helps benefits you for the next time you see them, helps benefit your colleagues for when they read your report, right? That's the clinical medical care you're doing. It's important. But in addition to documenting to that, you're documenting for insurance companies so we can bill and get paid. We're documenting for the lawyers so they don't sue us later on. You just tripled the amount of documentation, the time you got to spend. How does that impact your daily life when you walk home at night and you look back and think, hey, I did a great job today. I wrote 500 pages of notes.
That's true. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into our reports, and that's what we spend a lot of time making sure that the reports are polished. And I can tell you that our reports are not shorter than they used to be, they're longer. And a lot of that is perhaps defensive in nature. But, when we take a look at what we do, and I think this is true for all doctors, is they want to affect a positive outcome on the patient. And so we look and see what's wrong with them and what are the things that need to be done to get that patient better. That's the number one thing that we think about. The number two thing is a little bit defensive. Are there any incidental things that are arising that we need to speak about? And, what is it that we're not seeing? Again, in my world, a general practice doctor can look at an x-ray and say, yes, that's broken, or yes, that's a pneumonia or whatever. But it is, in my world, the corners that matter. That's what we say. And so we have to look at all of the corners and make sure that we're not missing anything that would be bad or arise that would cause harm to that patient. And so, yeah, a lot of it is speaking to somebody else rather than the patient or his direct doctor. We have to look at everything. And that's really important.
Yeah. And it's just so much going on. So I've talked to some radiologists over the years. I think, really, I could read that. That's a broken bone. I know that, right? What you're looking at is, yeah, but did you see over here? That's a potential cancer cell. That is not why they came in the emergency room. That is not what they're here for. But we need to follow up on that too. And your eye catches that.
It's that what gets us is the stuff that we're not really focused on. We don't want to make an allurative error by just focusing on the broken bone. You got to look at everything. And that's the way it is in medicine in general. When a patient comes in for something, specific. There are other things that are lurking that doctors root out and try to figure out.
We could spend all afternoon talking about the challenges, the financial challenges alone of healthcare and what the trigger points are, and hopefully get a little bit of sense and flavor of, hey, there's a lot to it, maybe more than even meets the eye. But I do want to turn our attention to and spend a little bit of time on, so what can we do about it, right? Because just sitting up here and complaining doesn't solve anything, right? So what can we do? What are things, and really trying to focus and drive it down locally? Because again, there's some national topics and we need to address them and fix them. But that's what we elect, Senator Barrasso for and Senator Lummis, and help us get those things done. But here in this room, we have a powerful group of employers here, many of whom are our partners and teammates. I say all the time, look, healthcare is a team sport. We cannot do it alone, right? And I look around this room and we have lots of great partners out here, right? Magic City's out there, Blue Cross Blue Shield's here. We have lots of people really invested in making healthcare better for us. So what are some tips you can give, some advice you can give, some guidance to kind of say, hey, we here in this room can walk away today and maybe have an eye to make things a little bit better. And while we may not, see the price of healthcare drop dramatically tomorrow, but if we're diligent and we do a couple of these things, we might see the price of healthcare stabilize, not jump up as high as it has been. With any luck, maybe it drops here and there in different points, but really kind of keep this train from running away from us. So, Eric, let me turn to you first.
Well, I've got all the answers.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
Glad I asked.
Well, a couple of ideas. I know that you've been actively looking at doing a few of these things, but self-employed or self-insured employers have the ability to do direct contracting with providers. It takes a little bit of an economies of scale, but it can really drive down the cost of overall healthcare for you and your employees. I think the other thing, and this is it's not that hard to understand, but it's called bundle payment, where for the whole episode of care, you can contract at a price, and we're seeing more and more uptake. And a lot of that, again, has to do with driving economies of scale to the hospitals and to the providers. I think that's one of the big things, as we're sitting here and we're businesses in Cheyenne, we always want everybody to shop with us, right? We want to keep business local. Well, I think it's really important that we keep our healthcare local too. We have a fantastic hospital here. Cheyenne Regional is in the best shape it's been in my 30 years here in the state, and they're continuing to add to that. But we have over $45 million of care from state employees that go across the border. Can you imagine what that could do, not only to help stabilize and shore up our hospital, it could drive down a lot of those costs. And we see that across the state. We're a border state. We see everything go to Utah or Montana, Rapid City, and then Colorado. So I think that's a really important thing. And I want to give you guys time. The other thing, though, I'd just say is that we're working really collectively right now with the colleges, especially community colleges, to try to produce more staff. And that's the key here to a lot of the expenses, is we've got to find more staff. But we're hoping to maybe have an LPN program where a kid graduates from high school and they're an LPN already, or they can be a CNA. We're looking at bringing in other subspecialties, not in physicians, but in radiology, in lab techs and things like that. We've got to grow our own here, and we've got to find ways to attract those folks that really want to be in healthcare.
So important, Eric. So as I mentioned, our healthcare partners just here in this room, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Magic City, others in here, but we have really important partners in LCCC. Right, they're graduating the nurses that we need to hire. We hired 23 brand new nurses here just in the last couple of months, and we need every single one of them and more, right? And they're going to start a new RT respiratory therapy program here for us. We need that. The rest of the state needs that. We need them. Our school districts, right? We need our schools to, graduate highly educated, talented people who are ready to end their workforce at all different levels. Fun thing about hospitals is we hire everyone at every level. Right, physicians, highly trained, nurses, exceptionally trained. But we have our very own little mini security staff. We have our own dietary. We run our own kitchen, our own restaurant. We have everything. We have our own engineering department. We have our own computer IT system. We have, we do a little bit of everything there. So we'll hire just about everyone that comes out in every form or fashion. Right. So the high school is so important. the junior college, so important, UW, so important to be our partners. We can't work without them.
Well, you're aware, Tim, we recently did an economic impact study through the University of Wyoming for healthcare in the state of Wyoming. For hospitals and nursing homes alone, we employ 35, almost 36,000 people across the state, and we're short-staffed. But it's a big economic driver, and as a business, when you take a look at recruiting into a town, and we've got a nuclear power plant scheduled to go into Kimmer, that hospital folds. Does anybody want to live there? We've got Rollins on I-80. We need to recruit people there, but if we lose that hospital, what a huge hole we'd have. 200 miles of interstate without coverage. And so hospitals are a huge part of the economy in every community, and they're much more important even than just the economic driver that they are.
Yeah. So Dr. Hauser, share with this group a little bit about, hey, what can they walk out of this room and support and maybe help do to make healthcare better in our community, but also maybe a little more affordable. And again, it may not realize it tomorrow, but we got to look longer term. Next month, next year, 2 years from now, if we do some stuff today, we can reap the benefit, a little bit further down the road.
Well, one thing that I like to make everybody aware, earlier is better. So earlier diagnosis is better. So well-established screening programs will reduce healthcare costs in the end. Mammography, for instance, breast cancer initiatives. These are things that have been epidemiologically proved over the course of time to reduce morbidity and mortality, therefore reducing costs. So the number one thing I would say is mammograms for women, proven reduction in problems later. And if you can catch something earlier, it's much less expensive to treat, because advanced stage diseases always require more hospitalizations, more surgeries, more imaging, and so on. So
it's less expensive, but also the survivability rate increases, right? Better clinical care,
Absolutely.
better outcomes. I mean, it's a win-win,
yes.
right? You're more likely to survive that, recover from that, and it'll cost you less to do it.
Yes. So that would be the number one thing I think would be very important, is to enhance the screening programs, the wellness programs that we spoke about. Those are really very important.
So as employers, hey, encourage wellness, encourage
Yes.
a wellness program of some sort, encourage your staff to use a primary care doctor, find one, encourage them when they need to take that moment. It's like they, give them time to go vote, give them time to get their colonoscopy screening, their mammogram, those kind of things. Makes a big difference. Supportive, don't make them feel guilty when they take a few hours off work to do that.
Right.
So everybody in here should only eat half of their cake today.
Yeah. So Sheila, kind of round us out here and bring us home a little bit on, again, one or two nuggets you can leave this audience with to say, hey, I feel a little bit empowered to go out there and potentially make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a list of stuff, and I won't list all of it because I think we're out of time. Again, primary care is on that list, and I think it's just further sort of a confirmation of what Dr. Hauser said in terms of early preventive care is going to be the most affordable. The outcomes are better. I think it's interesting that the United States spends roughly 4% of our healthcare spend on primary care. The other high-income developed nations outside of the United States spends closer to 17% of their total healthcare spend on primary care, and their health outcomes are dramatically better also. And so I think there's something to look at there and unpack. But what I would say for this group, aside from the four of us talking about solutions, the most important thing we can leave today knowing is conversations like this are really helpful. I think it's elevating the conversation around health policy in the state. Wyoming has done a beautiful job of really giving the attention that the mineral extraction industries deserve and need. Revenue generating potential for the state. But I think we've sort of missed the component that healthcare plays. We've taken it for granted, maybe a little. And so really in my 17 years in health policy, it's kind of the same group of folks talking about the problems. I call them the family, right? And we affectionately describe a lot of our meetings like the Thanksgiving table because they get a tiny bit spicy. But I think the real takeaway for this group is a huge thanks to the chamber and an organization of this caliber putting some attention on this issue, and letting everybody know that this conversation isn't just fluff. It's not just a warm fuzzy, even in the Capitol, sometimes the Labor Health Committee isn't the committee that's the desired, most popular committee legislators are beating down the door to get on. But this issue matters. It matters to our patients. It matters to business. Businesses can't run a business without healthy workers, and those healthy workers need healthcare. And so I think that would be my biggest takeaway, short of us kind of going through a laundry list of different solutions, which all matter. I think the most important thing is the conversation and enhancing that conversation, elevating it, and giving it the attention it needs.
Good, thanks. And I think to sum it up, it takes all of us. I said a couple times already, and again, I say this to every new employee. Healthcare is a team sport. We got to do this together. And while there's so many team players within the healthcare realm, we need everyone. We need everyone, from individuals to employers, to help make this better for us, right? So if we're all on the same page, row in the same direction, we can make a difference. If we start swimming in different directions, it gets hard to make a difference there. But people can have an impact on it. And Dale, we have such a great team up here of people who are knowledgeable about healthcare, but they're also local and so committed to our community. Like to have at least a moment to see if there's any questions from the audience, right? Take advantage of this panel up here. So if there's any questions anyone has like to ask this panel, now's a great time to pick their brains.
I have one, Tim, while we're waiting.
Yeah.
When do I get away from the kids' table and sit at the big table during Thanksgiving?
Oh, we have someone in the back there.
See, can you hear me? Oh, so my question is, you talked a lot about chronic disease prevention, talked a lot about cancer screenings, things like that. One of the highest disease issues in the United States, is diabetes prevention and management. And so I know that CRMC has a really great facility in terms of doing that education and prevention and management. In other communities, specifically rural communities that are away from larger hospitals and healthcare communities, some folks will have to travel up to 200 miles just to get to a diabetes educator or a nutritionalist. And so I'm just wondering, what would be the most effective ways to bring, pieces like that, cardiovascular health, those very first blocks or dominoes that begin to fall to affect more comorbid in the future with folks dealing with chronic disease prevention and management.
Yeah. What?
Well,
You're going to take this one.
I had intended to mention telehealth, so way to tee that one up. We work together in telehealth, but I think, in those rural communities, if the hospital or public health can't provide the diabetic support, telehealth is a solution to a lot of things. And during the pandemic, we saw a huge uptick, like exponential uptick in telehealth utilization. And there were some really good waivers and things that were put in place during the pandemic to allow physicians to treat across state lines and to use telehealth. And a lot of those have stayed in place. But I think we're in our state, we're still just barely scratching the surface. And I think telehealth is a growing part of the delivery of healthcare model in the state. But we need to make sure it's reimbursed and that people are paid for delivering that care. And then we need to change. We're the second oldest state demographically in the country. And a lot of our older folks don't really care for telehealth, but it's the wave of the future. And I think it's a really important tool that we can use in a lot of those different areas that you talked about.
Yeah, I think definitely telehealth is a mechanism for that. But you're spot on. Look at chronic disease. If you can slice the healthcare pie in lots of different ways, but one of the ways to look at chronic versus acute, and chronic disease represents about 60% of our healthcare spend. Right? It's a lot. Number one driver of chronic disease, behavior. Right? So we can modify through behavior the propensity to get diabetes and some other things. So there's lots of different things that we can do to help that. But telemedicine helping deliver it. But again, I'm going to push it back and say, look, hospitals can be that epicenter for delivering some of this. Insurance plans can potentially be the epicenter for it. Employers can be the center for this. So especially if you're a larger employer, you may want to look at your population and say, hey, where do my employees have the biggest need? And maybe I have a sizable, diabetic population that I employ. It maybe makes sense for me to spend a little bit of time finding a way to get them the help that they need, to make sure they're on their insulin and don't fall off, because that will prevent them from going to the hospital and it'll drive down my healthcare costs. Best way to drive down healthcare costs is don't use it. Don't use the high-end chronic stuff. Spend a little bit of money on the preventive stuff. Avoid spend on high-end expensive things. What else? I prepared them that they're going to get darts thrown at them and everything else. And all right. Well, one more. Oh, yes, great.
Is this one? Okay. And something about legislation coming that is brand new about, I want to make sure I understood this correctly, and maybe you can enhance on it a little bit more, about having more healthcare workers in our elderly care facilities. Was it you that mentioned that? Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Well, I won't belabor the point, but the Biden administration, well, let me step back just a little bit. Long-term care has been under a microscope during the pandemic, and we saw some horror stories in parts of the country. I think in Wyoming, we did a pretty dang good job. And a lot of that had to do with leadership in our state and with our state health officer. However, because of what's happened in other parts of the country, the Biden administration thinks that the solution to that is to put staffing ratios in place. It's being driven by unions and other things. What we've always done in long-term care is we've adjusted our staffing based on the acuity level of the patients that we're serving, but now it's going to be mandated, and we're talking about significant increases in workforce that doesn't exist to meet those ratios so we can check the box. Otherwise, we'll be penalized. And our nursing homes already receive civil monetary penalties as they're surveyed for different things. That money goes into a big pot of money that some of it's held by the state, some of it goes to the federal government. And so there's real concern, and in all honesty, I expect that we'll lose nursing homes in our state if this is fully enacted, and it's in the comment period right now. But it's super, super scary. And when you look at our aging population, I don't know where they're going to go. Obviously, we'll have a lot of them in our hospitals that shouldn't be there. We don't have wraparound services or a lot of things we need in our communities to help them stay in their homes longer, which is the most inexpensive place for them. But at some point, there's a lot of demand and need for long-term care. And this is just, it could be a death knell, honestly. Our nursing homes right now are at like 60% occupancy, not because there isn't demand, it's because they don't have supply. They don't have enough staff as is. And for nursing homes to survive, it's economies of scale. 70% of their residents that they're taking care of are on Medicaid, and we don't even cover the cost of that care. The others are either spending down what they have in assets. Some of them may have a long-term care plan. Very few do, because we just don't plan that way. Or they could be on Medicare. But when you're dealing with only government payers, and Medicaid being the most prominent one, it's problematic. So it's a very scary time for long-term care in our country, but particularly in our state when they're so fragile already.
So long-term care nursing homes, right? We know them as that. And yeah, they take care of our loved ones. Are so important. And no one is saying, hey, we don't need more staff, more people participating. Long-term care facilities are begging for it, right? So I think this is a misallocation of carrot versus stick, right? So rather than saying, hey, we all recognize we have a staffing shortage. What can we, government in this instance, but anyone, say, hey, what can we do to encourage more people to go into that field, to open up more space for it, make it a more desirable field? Instead, we're saying, hey, nursing
oh my gosh, I don't know if this is like positive or negative, how I should feel right now. It really is a lot of challenges, and we're so fortunate that we had this group, here to talk with us today. I mean, our incredible, CEO of our hospital locally, fantastic. Thank you so much. And Dr. Hauser and Sheila and Eric, thank you so much for being here. What a great, conversation for us to be having. I like what you said about the wellness programs. I'm very fortunate to have a company that does do that. They give us money, really, to like do things like have glucose checks and, things like that. I mean, just little things like that. So employers that can do that, it's amazing that you can have that, wellness care up front. So again, thanks everybody for coming today. Again, thank you guys for being here. We will see you next month as we celebrate, there's no place like Cheyenne, and we're going to learn more about businesses that make our community soar. So everybody get your booths now and don't miss out. Let's have a wonderful and safe Labor Day weekend. Hopefully you guys can hang out for a few minutes and chat with people. If they have more questions, that would be awesome. Thank you. Thanks everybody.